About your advice for communities served by some of the bigger companies. Is this the new USF rules? Are those going to provide more subsidies to those companies to serve unserved areas?
Yeah. I didn't get into too much detail on it, and we could talk about it afterwards. Of the $4 billion a year high-cost program, it's roughly divided up half again between the very small rural cooperatives and very small rural telephone companies. They're called rate of return carriers. There are a lot of them in Minnesota, and then the large carriers like AT&T, Frontier, Windstream, CenturyLink. Yeah. The FCC is setting up different transition mechanisms for both, and the larger carriers are getting one of these kind of offers to say that, we will the program will reimburse or will pay up to $775 per location that receives an upgrade over the next 18 months, or 18 months after the thing comes out, so say 2 years. And that is kind of like, I've called it a bounty, but they didn't really call it that. But that is driven towards trying to push a lot of these areas that are served by CenturyLink, that are served by Frontier, Fairpoint, and Windstream, to getting some incremental DSL investment to pass that 4 megabit per second threshold. They've modeled that as to how far they go. I think nationally they're talking about that would lead to about 600,000 lines of additional investment. I haven't thought about that in the context of Minnesota, but I mean, that could have some, some marginal effect, and it's kind of depending on the area. And then that's like phase 1 of the program, and then there's an additional phase that comes in later. So they are trying to treat the large company issues separately from the small rural rate of return carriers, because they're in different situations. Many of the smaller companies, small rate of return companies, have made investments on existing plant on the assumption of continuing subsidies, and so they don't want to have that pulled out from them directly, whereas the larger carriers are in completely different situations. So they've separated those out. That's one of those areas where it's going to become important for communities to know where they stand a little bit. The right prescription for a community that's served by a CenturyLink may be different than one that's served by a rural telephone company. And helping communities understand the implications of that is something I'm hoping that this presentation and further discussions will do.